people! Fuck the police! Fuck the police!
Mandates! Over! Mandates! Over! When I say mandates, you say over! Mandates! Over!
For months now, protesters defying the New Zealand government's vaccination mandate had been boiling over. These protests drew thousands of demonstrators to our capital city to voice their concern of vaccination legislation on Parliament grounds. Protests were often peaceful but subject to heavy police presence.
I'm protesting for freedom and like my right of not wanting a vaccine or just what it is in general. It's my right, it's your right, you should be here doing it.
It could go either way, it could turn peaceful, and I'm more than willing to accept peaceful. But if physical aggression is the way to go, I don't want to do it. It's the last thing I ever want to do, but if they back me into a corner, that's the way it's going to end up going.
What made this movement unique was its marriage of conservatives and liberals, who were united against the enforcement of COVID prevention laws. But this inconsistency was also a defining factor that limited public buy-in. It wasn't until February 6th, inspired by Canadian Convoy protests, demonstrators navigated the entire country, deciding to move in on Parliament grounds in the most spectacular way ever. Accommodation was free, food provided by the Hare Krishnas, and Thursday night movies for the kids. What more could you want? Though now entering its third week of occupation, although police had originally opted for a peaceful de-escalation process of the protest, police issued a statement saying they would be boosting policing of abusive behaviour, traffic violations, and education/business obstructions, which there had been an increasing number of. While some advocated for calmness, some favoured civil disobedience, but lacking any real diplomatic leadership, mixed with heightened emotions due to stress and lack of sleep, this was destined to end only one way. Pretty much what I've seen and heard, stuff is going berserk down at Parliament. Something about a fire on the lawn. The protesters obviously getting fed up with the police and the ground that they've been making. As it stood upon my arrival to Parliament, majority of the protesters' claimed land had been lost in a swift yet destructive offence by police. Demonstrators now spilled onto the streets, desperately salvaging any control they once had, and the result was one of chaos. Surprisingly, seemingly no one in the crowd was distressed, but rather cheering when police were hit and coaching attackers towards weak spots. For a short moment, rioters even made ground back into Parliament. And paraded police gear, which was forfeited. And while bricks were removed as makeshift ammunition, movements were made elsewhere surrounding Parliament. It was here upon the borderline of a lawless battlefield in the Wellington CBD, significant charges were made, first from the protesters.
Just been like filling them up.
Police equipment used to disperse the crowd commonly included water cannons, riot shields, and for the first time seen here, sponge bullets.
Fucking hell! Oh, fuck the police!
Bystanders from all sides would then witness a turn in tides as riot police stormed ahead, instigating a flurry of retreats which would momentarily inflame tensions even further. It took 6 hours to reclaim the streets of Wellington, albeit a 23-day wait for locals. And on the streets afterwards were an array of arguments.
To try and shut people up that have lost their jobs, that have lost their loved ones, that have whānau with adverse reactions. You just shut the fuck up and bounce your ass somewhere else and let them talk.
Confrontation.
Fucking daughter, bitch! Remember that! Remember that!
And retreat. Our Putin shirt wearing friend even saw some action.
Today was a day that made me think of Parihaka, and it's a repeat of Parihaka.
So yeah, I watched all the violence break out. You know, it was a small minority of, but you know, people are understandably angry.
The 2nd of March 2022 will go down in New Zealand's history as a dark day for protesters, police, and all of us, with causes and implications far deeper than any YouTube video could ever reach. This is purely what I encountered on that day. I'm finally going. That was probably the most insane thing I've seen with my eyes in New Zealand. I feel really drained, and I can only imagine what people feel like who have been there for whatever, how long it's been going, 23 days or something like that. And I can only breathe a sigh of relief now that the protest is over. And I've tried to make this video as impartial as I possibly can, but look, you're on my channel, so opinion alert, I'm gonna start talking. What began as an attempt to unite many under one issue became environmentalists accommodating the destruction of their land, believers witnessing the degradation of their word, and children participating in the violence their parents tried so hard to steer them away from. And while it's easy to say these rioters weren't a part of the wider group, you're known by who you associate yourself with, and this great big blur of people are accountable for each other. While I have no doubt that the people at the protest were good and remain good, I think a lot of them lost themselves identifying with people who felt betrayed by authority and rejected by society. I'm all for personal beliefs and public protest, but what I saw, while a lot was actually, it was actually quite impressive, was actually just a long shot from what diplomatic, constructive and practical protest should look like. Now, I could press into the nitty-gritty of the occupation, and I know there's a lot to say and equally a lot of things I've missed on, but what good will that do for a country that we've seen hurt so much? The best we can do is reassure skeptical loved ones facts, like mandates were never created to last. Acknowledge existing inequities in our society that led to this event, and be empathetic and pragmatic, reminding ourselves we, including politicians, are just like each other, flawed, struggling human beings. And the only way we'll get out of this is together.